Is the trade market heating up for the Miami Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey? And is his preference to go to a West Coast team? Plus, PFF discussed the Miami Dolphins in the 2026 draft and what they said. Pretty sobering stuff. We'll discuss that and so much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new. And as always, let's get into this.
Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field on the near side, man open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one. I appreciate all y'all coming through. As you do, please do me the favor, smash the like button. If you are new, subscribe and go ahead and click that bell so you get notifications whenever I drop a video or whenever I go live. All right, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about, mainly around Jalen Ramsey today, but we got a few other things I do want to discuss. Let's start off with something, just some of my thoughts here. We talked about it earlier in the week, right? When Sheduer Sanders was ticketed for driving 101 miles per hour in a 65. I just said, hey, with where you're drafted, with the scrutiny around you already, you just can't afford to do that kind of stuff. But, I didn't hold his feet to the flames over it. It is what it is. Well, guess what? Apparently, it's come out that he was also pulled over on June 5th for driving 91 in a 65. So, and he also failed to appear at the June 16th arraignment of that initial ticket. So, this guy's up here racking up, the guy's got more speeding tickets than he does touchdown passes in Cleveland, and he's only been there for not even 2 months yet, right? It'll be like 2 months and like a week. So, I said this after the first one. I'll say it again. Good luck, man. This is the stuff you can't be doing. This guy misses the arraignment, and then the next day he gets his second speeding ticket in like 12 days. Hey, man, it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and bash the guy's character because he drives a little fast. All I'm sitting here and saying is he is not doing the stuff to keep the noise quiet around him like he should be. You got to put your head down and work given the situation you were in. But, hey, you know what? That's the Cleveland Browns problem, not ours. But you just got that feeling that maybe this is another one of those bullets, people dodge. Now, he could come out and ball out, but, the word out of Cleveland is that Dylan Gabriel, in terms of understanding an NFL offense and processing defenses, apparently he's ahead of the curve quite significantly. But, hey, we'll see. Again, it's June. We've still got training camp. We've still got the preseason and then the regular season. Anything's possible, right? The one thing is, kind of like Tua, would love to see what Sheduer Sanders could do with a good offensive line because he didn't really have one in college. So, another thing too, obviously Madden's coming out within like a month and a half, and yeah, I don't know if you guys saw this, but right now on the beta, the Dolphins reportedly have the 4th highest rating. That's crazy. The Chiefs are a 92. The 49ers are a 92. The Ravens are a 91. And the Dolphins are apparently an 89. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Number 5 is actually the Cowboys. And are the Cowboys winning anything anytime soon? I don't know. But this is what the rumor is right now. That the Dolphins at an 89. Listen, I'm a Dolphins fan, and that's crazy. The Bills, for example, who have dominated our division, are only an 85. The Eagles, who just won the Super Bowl, are apparently an 87. Now, this is the beta. That could obviously change. That is 110% realistic of a possibility, right? So, we'll see. But the fact that, oh man, that would be just so Dolphins, wouldn't it? That would just be so Dolphins. Be much better in Madden than what they're giving us in real life. So we'll see. Again, it's the beta, but I kind of funny. Everyone, like non-Dolphin fans, are like losing their minds over this and stuff. So I find it kind of funny. I mean, let's be honest. Aside from the secondary, on paper the roster's really good. Let's be real here. If healthy, the roster is very good on paper, minus the secondary and the offensive line depth. Those would probably be your two biggest issues. And secondary, more so corner, right? And then offensive line depth, like the starting 5 on the offensive line, I've told you guys, if they stay healthy, that's a top 15, top 10 offensive line. But Austin Jackson is hurt again. He's been hurt more than Tua and Jalen Phillips, right? James Daniels, I keep saying it. What's he going to be when he comes off of this Achilles injury? Is he going to look like a guy fresh off the injury? Or is he going to look more like the guy he was before the injury because he was balling out? That guy, the guy he was before the Achilles injury, was going to be a guy we wouldn't have been able to afford this offseason, but here we are. So, yeah. Hey. Again, all things can change when the real version is released. And I'll tell you one thing. I'm excited for college football and Madden this year. They look awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Another thing that is kind of getting people's attention. Remember, me and Neil with our Fin Too Deep episode, we talked about Jalen Ramsey and Pretty Ricky, and we've heard reports about them being interested, in the Steelers being interested in Jalen Ramsey, and it seems like it's ramping up a little bit in that regard. Well, something that was making headlines, on Friday was the fact that Jalen Ramsey, everyone was noticing that Jalen Ramsey was following a bunch of Steelers players like Deshaun Elliott, DK Metcalf, Joey Porter Jr., so everyone thought that was kind of interesting. Darius Slay, who's now a Steeler. So, all of a sudden he was following all these Pittsburgh Steelers players. So people were like, oh, is it happening? Is this happening? Are we getting what's going down? So, I mean, that's going to be something to continue to monitor and keep an eye on. In this situation, I think it's something we all want to come to a close, and it does feel like we are going to get an answer sooner rather than later. And, with training camp starting in about a little over a month, it feels like the next 4 to 5 weeks, that answer is coming. Now, let's get into it here. Is it ramping up a little bit? Because now we're hearing a team that was just, we kind of chuckled at the offer that was on the table in an ESPN article regarding this team. And then there's a familiar team popping up. So anyways, Adam Schefter was on Pat McAfee, and he was asked about anything notable going on right now. All right. And this is what he had to say. He went right to the Ramsey. So this is what happened, because it seems like the market is starting to ramp up a little bit, and it seems like his preferred destination may be the West Coast. So it kind of counters the Pittsburgh stuff. So here we go.
Is there any outstanding storylines other than Shamar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati? Other than, is TJ Watt going to get signed? Is that basically the big ones that we're waiting on? And I guess Micah Parsons as well. Is there anything else that's kind of lingering through that maybe we haven't seen or heard of?
First of all, let's go back to Wednesday a second because we bring up Jair Alexander. And as I'm on the phone, I misread the text. I get a text, Jair is here in the building right now in Baltimore. So as I'm on the phone with you, at 12:36, I get a text that Jair is in the building right now. So I misread it because there was a text with an emoji prior to that. So there's always something going on in the NFL. That's the point, right? There's always something going on. So I would say this, that the Dolphins continue to have conversations about trading Jalen Ramsey, and I think that a trade there will get done. The question is, when does it get done? Does it get done next week, the week after, prior to the start of training camp? I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but Jalen Ramsey will get traded. It'll be, I would expect, before the start of training camp. We'll see how it shakes out, where he goes. I think he would like to go to the West Coast, to Los Angeles, Rams, Chargers, somewhere like that, and we'll see how that happens.
So a few interesting things here, okay? He's saying the West. First of all, I know the Raiders have been sniffing around, the corner market since before the draft. I mean, that's technically out West. But anyways, the Chargers and the Rams. Now, we know McVay just talked about obstacles potentially getting in the way for them bringing back Jalen Ramsey. And when he was talking about that, you had to wonder to yourself, is this just window dressing? Is this him just trying to leverage and play hardball and make it seem like they might not be interested to maybe, because we've heard Miami wants fair compensation, right? They want fair compensation. They don't want to get fleeced. Was that McVay in the Rams' way of kind of leveraging through their media availability? I don't know. But now we're hearing the Chargers too. And the Chargers are a team that need help at corner. Now, if you remember, we went over this back in, I want to say, what was it? It was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. There was an article with like hypothetical trades for Jalen Ramsey. And one of them was Seth Walder. Remember? He said we would get a 2027 7th round pick, but we'd give up Ramsey in a 2027 6th round pick. Remember this article? The only one that made sense was the Carolina offer was Ramsey for a 4th round pick. But if he wants to go to the West Coast, how does this impact what we're hearing about Pittsburgh? And is this why it's taking a little bit longer? Because remember, the other thing too is Los Angeles brought back the young corner they released in Deion Kendrick. Remember, they released him. We all thought, oh, okay, does this mean something? And then what happened? It didn't mean anything, right? They brought him back. They've been openly, publicly, like, showing nothing but love to Jalen Ramsey, specifically from McVay. They're interested. They need an upgrade there. And that defense was already really good last year. He has a good relationship there. I don't know. And now the Chargers. I mean, this is, first of all, you heard Schefter say that they're having conversations. This is starting to ramp up a little bit. We're hearing the Steelers. Now we're hearing LA again. When after we were talking about obstacles, we're like, oh, maybe they're pulling back. Now we're even hearing the Chargers. What does that tell you? This guy's open. He wants to get out of there for sure. But it looks like he also wants to go somewhere warm. And I always thought to myself, like, Pittsburgh has a lot of question marks, especially at quarterback right now. Ideally, you'd want him to go to the Rams because you'd be getting him out of the AFC. Now, is he Jalen Ramsey from 6 or 7 years ago where, he strikes the fear in the heart of your quarterback and you have to get him out of the AFC? No, he's not. But ideally, you just want, it out, especially if he has a bounce back season, you'd want that to go on in the NFC. You wouldn't want that going on in the AFC. Now, the Chargers, they got a ton of cap space. They got like a little less than $32 million in cap space. And they got a ton of cap space for next year. They got almost $120 million in cap space for 2026. Why does that matter? They could facilitate the cap space without Miami having to take any on. And then they could give some new money to Ramsey and it wouldn't kill them. Right? And remember, all they really added was Dante Jackson. I mean, Jalen Ramsey can go out there and beat Dante Jackson. So that's the interesting thing about the Chargers. The Rams, you know they don't have the money. And you know the obstacles McVay is talking about is the money. Whereas the Chargers, they got the money. Where, hey, we can take that on, blah, 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 blah. Now, that's kind of a double-edged sword. Okay, get that money off the books. That's cool. They can take it on. They can make him happy with some new money. That's cool. But at the same time, you're probably not going to get as premium as a pick as if you were eating some of the salary this year. You know? So, like, if a team wanted to only pay 12 or 13 million and you had to eat the rest, you could be like, hey, okay, well, give me a fourth, a conditional fourth that turns into a third. If you got a team like the Chargers who's like, okay, we'll just eat it all, you're probably talking more fifth. Maybe a fifth that's a conditional to a fourth. But now you're more in the fifth range. So that is kind of a double-edged sword. Now I know there's people out there that you'll just get rid of them. So, I mean, I just want the distraction gone. Would I prefer, you know, if they're going to give you a fifth, make sure it's a conditional, right? Based on either play time or if he goes to the Pro Bowl or if you win a playoff game, whatever the case may be. You know, I want the best pick possible because I still think he can perform. Like, here's my thing. Even if you don't leave him at corner and you shift him to safety, first of all, if you trade him to the team that does that, they're going to look like geniuses. And then number two, they are going to get probably more value out of him than what someone would use him at corner right now. So what I mean by that is if you're getting more value out of him, well, then pay up more. But we're also in this position where it's getting to the point where you got to move on. So it's a sticky situation, man. And let's just hope we get some resolution soon. But, you know, you heard Schefter. In one breath, he says, you know, I don't know if it could be done by this time, or training camp. And then he says, in the next breath, I expect it to be done by training camp. So, I thought this might be handled before OTAs. You got to think it gets handled before training camp. You have to. And I'm just in disbelief that y'all knew about this since February. And I don't know. You should have been exploring. You should have been trying to trade him before the new league year opened, in my opinion. But, you know, now you put yourself in a position. And I get it, right? I get what everyone's going to say. Well, look at what the cap hit. Yeah, but okay. You could have restructured his deal to free up that money. Find the partner. Tell him, listen, this is what we got to do. We got to revise this so we can make this happen now and get you out of here. And they've agreed to give you new money. Everyone would be happy. He would be like, yeah, okay, cool. Get me out of here. Because remember, there's also been talk this week that the Miami Dolphins might have to revise the contract or restructure it a little bit to facilitate a trade right now. So if you got to do it now anyways, when you already get all this relief, you should have done it back in February. Find a partner and then make it work. And I'm sure Ramsey's camp would have facilitated that because he clearly wants out of here. Right? Update on that countdown, by the way. It was at 5 days before June 1st. You know, what are we at now? 26, 27? Oh boy. And plus 26, 27, by the way. He was technically -5. So let's just hope this gets done. And if he goes to the West Coast, he goes to the West Coast. But, you know, whether it's Pittsburgh, the Chargers, or the Rams, I just want Greer to get the best return possible as quickly as possible. And that's another thing with Greer. Usually he does the fleecing. He doesn't like to get fleeced for someone he knows is as talented as Ramsey, but what position are they in? Now, if you want to see something real sobering, okay, PFF, they just dropped an article, 2026 NFL Draft, one area every NFL team needs to think about. And their answer for the Miami Dolphins, yeah, it's going to hit harder than your morning coffee or whatever your vice is in the day or at night. Let me tell you that. Check this out. They said everything. Remember, the title of the article was one area every NFL team needs to think about. And they decided everything. They said this is a make or break year for the Dolphins. It's safe to say everyone involved enters a prove-it season. General Manager Chris Greer, head coach Mike McDaniel, quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. That's not to say those three haven't done good things in Miami, but they feel at a crossroads. With 2 losses in the wild card round in McDaniel's first 2 years, no playoff appearance last year, though Tagovailoa not being in the lineup was a factor, they seem to have missed a good chunk of the window of the Patriots and Jets being bad in their division. Now that the Patriots have a much better outlook, a major step forward is needed from Miami. If not, wholesale changes could be on the horizon. And I've talked about this. I've said this. I think if they have 2 more good drafts like they just had and have a couple more strong free agencies, that's when I think look out for the Patriots. I think they're about 2 years away. Now they could surprise early, 110%. But I look like they need another 2 drafts like the one they just had and some strong free agencies. I don't mean like get every big hitter on the free agent market, but strong free agencies. It looks like, I've said this, they're trending upwards. Now the Jets, I don't believe that. I think people are putting way too many eggs in the Justin Fields basket. I'm not worried about them at all. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm more worried about the Patriots in 2 years than the Jets in 2 years. I don't see it with the Jets still. That's just my opinion. I think they're going to trade Breece Hall. I think Garrett Wilson won't be there in a couple years. I think this is going to be a totally I don't think they're going to be good for a while. At worst, I think we dropped to 3rd in the division. But if they continue to retool and if these young players step up, who knows? Who knows? We could be even better than 2nd. I'm not trying to jinx anything. I'm just saying, you never know. We talk about this all the time. Win the offseason every year. Just to fail in December and January. Everyone can agree we didn't have one of those winning Super Bowl off seasons, but maybe investing in this youth, investing in that hunger breeds different results in the months that matter. Especially if a guy like Jalen Wright can step up. If we can have someone like Storm Duck or, God help us, Cam Smith or Isaiah Johnson, someone step up, or BJ Adams is UDFA, someone really step up next to Cater. And Artie Burns gives us something decent when he's used, because clearly if we're leaning on the young kids, I still think they're going to add someone, whether it be Rasul Douglas or Asante Samuel Jr. someone. I still think they're going to add someone to this room, but man, those corners step up, right? And the safeties stay healthy. If the corners step up and the safeties stay healthy, I think our secondary will be fine. And I think our front 7, I've told you this. If we would have added Dre Greenlaw, I think we'd have the best front 7 in the AFC. The way Willie Gay's pushing Tyrell Dotson right now, we actually might have a top 5 in the front 7, If Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb stay healthy and Chop builds off of year 1, Kenneth Grant and Zach Sealer wreak havoc on the interior with Benito Jones and guys like Zeke Biggers and Jordan Phillips filling out on the interior, man, that could be special. And if the trenches on the offensive side stay healthy, if Austin Jackson can, stay healthy, and if James Daniels looks like the guy he was before the injury, we might be onto something here with this trench play. We might be onto something. Sensu beans for everyone. So have a bag for Austin Jackson. All right. Anyways, guys, do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new. Appreciate all of you for coming through. And I will see you on the next one. If anything breaks regarding Jalen Ramsey or even Jonnu Smith, you can expect me. Till then, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. Appreciate y'all. I'll see you on the next one.